The United States is an example of what can be achieved if people stick to bedrock rules of decent conduct. But the United States is also an example of what happens when bedrock values are forgotten or deliberately ignored. Ever since we Jews received the Ten Commandments, we were expected to protect the bedrock values, but we were just not up to it. Our rabbis never understood the power and simplicity of the commandments, and they caused us to fail. And our failure is the main reason why the United States has forgotten its bedrock values and is causing the whole world to fall to pieces as a result. As the custodians of the Ten Commandments, we were supposed to be a light unto the nations, and we were supposed to make sure that the world remained familiar with the bedrock values. But our rabbis changed our covenant, and they caused us to fall flat on our faces and to disgrace ourselves in front of all humankind, which has never forgiven us. And to this day, our rabbis advance their own ideas ahead of our commandments. So we have no idea of right and wrong. And this has caused us 2,000 years of tribulation, and anti-Semitism is rising once again. We Jews still get our values from the same sort of ghastly people who almost drove Moses insane 3,500 years ago. They've never understood bedrock values, but they've promoted the Talmud, the Kabbalah, numerology, and endless other crap. But they don't give us the bedrock values that God gave us through Moses. The upshot is that we Jews have no idea of godly values. And as for bedrock values, Moses, in his final speech to the nation, hammered home the point that God's law was simple and easy to carry out. We just had to see it and do it. We didn't have to send people across the sea to get it for us. And when Moses said, just see it and do it, he meant that we shouldn't complicate it to the point that we couldn't understand it. But our rabbis have made such a twisted mess of it that we have no idea of what's important and what is not important. And because of our rabbis, we cannot obey Moses' instruction to just see it and do it. And Moses ended his speech by predicting that the day would come when we would look back on our long history and we would see that whenever we lost sight of the bedrock values, things have gone rotten. And that whenever we clearly understood the bedrock values, things had gone well. Well, we now have to decide whether to return to the simple bedrock values of the covenant or have our brains scrambled by our rabbis and fail ourselves and the rest of the world. And in America today, because we Jews don't have a clear view of the bedrock values, we think that the covenant means leftism. And we think it's godly to support the Democrat Party. And those are the most godless lost souls of all. They pretend to care about God and the commandments, but they do no such thing. And we also talk about tikkun olam, or repairing the world, as if we know better than anyone else what's wrong with the world. So it's not surprising that non-Jews want to smash our skulls in. And because of our ghastly rabbis, anti-Semitism is reaching new heights, and some Americans are walking along chanting, The Jews will not replace us. So if we Jews persist with our leftist nonsense and rabbinical garbage, it'll be worse for us than it was in Nazi Germany. And that brings us to the subject of Jesus and millions of Christians. 2,000 years ago, it was obvious to Jesus that the rabbis were not interested in the bedrock values of the covenant. And they were doing exactly what they are doing now. And he told them bluntly that they were destroying the wisdom of the covenant, and he knew very well that they didn't like what he was saying. And he was well aware that they would find a way to murder him. And everyone knows what they did. And today, now that Christianity has lost the bedrock values and is falling to pieces, the whole Western world is collapsing into ruination. And it all starts with Jewish blindness, which comes from our rabbis. So we Jews need to be straight with the Christians. We need to tell the Christians that we've had enough of Jesus being God. We've had enough of him rising from the dead, and we've realized what sort of man he was and how brave and far-sighted he was, and how he tried to preserve the bedrock values of the covenant. But we are sick of being told that he was God. It's bullshit. And if Christians want to save their church in the Western world, then they need to finish what Jesus started. And this means restoring the bedrock values. But Christians don't do this. Instead, they carry on with the 2,000-year-old Roman garbage about the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, which simply gets on people's nerves and achieves nothing else. Jesus was a Jew, and he tried to preserve the bedrock values of the 10 Commandments. And this means that Christianity and Judaism are identical. The only real difference between the two faiths is that the church threatens whoever doesn't believe that Jesus was God. They threaten them with burning in hell forever. But on the other hand, if Christians take up Jesus' struggle and stop calling him God, and if they update their theology accordingly, then their next generation will be able to revitalize the clergy and bring new power and prestige to the churches. Young Christians will then be able to save Western civilization and become a great generation just like their great-grandparents, even if it now seems to be that they are a lost cause. They're not a lost cause. Christians have always awaited the return of Jesus. And this huge event can indeed take place, provided that they help us Jews, to restore the bedrock values of the covenant. And once this is done, millions of Christians will have every reason to return from church, and they won't have to put up with threats of eternal hellfire. The way to happiness and prosperity is via the bedrock values of the 10 Commandments, and not the garbage of the rabbis. The rabbis have to go before we Jews can do anything. So if you want to investigate these views further, then just visit our blog at confrontation.biz. It contains about 30 full-length articles and costs $9.50 per year, which won't break anybody's bank or make us rich. We'll keep on adding new articles throughout the year free of charge to those who sign up. So this is Paul Kaplan signing out until the next talk, which will not be long in coming.